Welcome to the best of the Leon Charney Report. For over 2 decades, Leon Charney, one of the architects of the historic Camp David Peace Accords, has interviewed some of the most important figures in modern-day history. These interviews provide a window into some of the most significant events of the last 50 years. In this excerpt, recorded in July of 2001, Leon Charney speaks with Yuval Steinitz, the current finance minister of Israel, who was once a member of Peace Now, and explains why he went right-wing and joined Likud.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report, and we're talking to you once again from Tel Aviv, Israel, and we're trying to understand the situation, which is very difficult. So we brought on someone who seems to have a real good background to help us understand it. A, he's a member of the Knesset, but B, he's also a doctor of philosophy. So if you put the two together, maybe we get a package that'll help us understand what the prognosis will be for the future of the state of Israel. Our guest today is Dr. Yuval Steinitz. He's a member of the Likud party, and he's also the chairman of the Subcommittee on Defense Planning and Policy. Aside from that, and what's most interesting, I think, about his career, he used to be with Peace Now, which is a very left-wing organization, and now he's on the right side, and he's in the Knesset. So we're going to ask him why he made this metamorphosis. At least he had to change T-shirts, because they all have different T-shirts from left to right. Welcome, Yuval. That's an interesting story. You were a pretty, I wouldn't call it radical, but fervent supporter of Peace Now and an activist with Peace Now, right?
Yes.
So what were you fighting for in those days?
Well, during the 80s and also the beginning of the 90s, I was convinced that if we shall do large enough and generous enough compromises or concessions vis-a-vis the Palestinians, including the establishment of an independent Palestinian state in most of the territories, we could create peace and stability and to reduce hostility in the Middle East.
So what happened? Didn't work?
Well, I think it's very clear. Now it is even much more clear than in the beginning of the 90s.
Well, when did you see it really going down? When did you say, you know what, I went home at night and I got to talk to my wife?
Let me start by saying that now what I saw is became
reality.
Very evident to most Israelis. You know, for 7 years now, we were aspiring for peace, and we made really, beginning with the leadership of the late Yitzhak Rabin, dramatic compromises and concessions vis-a-vis the Palestinians. And we hoped for peace. And we got war. And we hoped to reduce hostility. And the hostility was increased, sharply increased, and also hostilities. So now it is very clear, I think, to almost everybody, that the real struggle is existential struggle, and that the real aim of the Palestinians, or at least the current Palestinian leadership, is not just to establish an independent Palestinian state, because this was offered by Ehud Barak last summer. He offered an independent Palestinian state on almost 100% of Gaza Strip and 96% of Judea and Samaria, of the West Bank, including uprooting most of the settlements. And the response was by Arafat, no, I'm not taking it, unless it includes some elements that will enable the destruction of the Jewish state in the near future. To me, it came a little bit earlier. Already in 1993 and 1994, it became evident, I think, that the Oslo agreements are not peace agreements, but more likely war agreements. And the two major factors were, first, when it became evident that the Palestinian education system, and this is much more important than what Arafat and his people are telling the foreign media abroad, what they're telling their own people, and especially what they're telling their youngest, that the Palestinian education system is shifting not toward peace, but toward greater hostility and very, very serious incitement, anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic incitement. And this became evident a year or two after Oslo. The second fact, which is even more important, was that according to Israel's concept of defense and also concept of peace, it was always clear to the Peace Now movement, to the Labour Party, to Meretz, to those people who thought that it is possible to bargain land for peace, land occupied in 1967, for peace with Arab partners, and I was among them, it was always clear that there are two fundamental conditions, two necessary conditions. One, real peace, end of the conflict, end of any further demands beyond the green line, beyond things like this. And two, that those territories that are given back will be completely demilitarized. And this is due to Israel's tiny, almost impossible geographical dimension. It is such a tiny, minuscule state. Now, in Egypt, with the Egyptians, and I think you were involved.
A little bit.
The Egyptians accepted those two demands. Before we started the withdrawal from Sinai, it was an end to the conflict, at least in this frontier.
Right.
They declared that they will have no further demands beyond what was agreed inside the green line, inside Israel, no right of return or things like that. And secondly, although unwillingly, they accepted the principle of complete demilitarization of Central or East Sinai. In the beginning, they dislike it.
Well, I got to tell you, I beat you to it, because when I saw the Oslo agreements, and I'm for peace, obviously, I said to a friend of mine whose name is Azer Weitzman, these are a disaster, these agreements. And I've said 100 times on this show, but you've never heard it maybe. I said what should have happened at Oslo is A, that the Palestinians would destroy the covenant against the destruction of Israel. B, the Israelis should recognize the Palestinians and stop everybody go to Geneva for 10 years, set up committees to find out how to resolve this. So instead of doing confidence building measures, get confidence first in the committees. Don't give them land and don't give them a military organization, because when you do that, you can't retract it. So I'm not a doctor. Yes, I am a doctor of philosophy now, but I was about 3.5 years ahead of everybody on that, and I'm very much pro-peace. Obviously, I was involved in Camp David. So what you're saying is absolutely correct, and it was a miserable piece of paper that was signed, and historically, in my opinion, will go down in history as one of the greatest dangers that hit the state of Israel.
I completely agree with you, but you are emphasizing, and this is, and rightly so, the criticism on Israel and on the way, on the method of those agreements, not about the basic idea.
The concept is fine.
Not about the concept of making peace
Absolutely.
and large concessions vis-a-vis the Palestinians, but about the way we carried it out.
Right.
But you asked me about what changed my mind.
Right.
So I was not so clever.
No,
But
you're
a year
clever.
a year after Oslo, which I supported wholeheartedly, and I supported Rabin in 1992, a year after Oslo, it became evident also that the Palestinians are violating the arms control elements, which are vital. They were vital in Sinai, and all the more so, it is vital for us, it is a necessary condition that Palestinian state, those territories, which are in immediate proximity, in walking distances to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, and to most of our military garrisons and airports, will be demilitarized. The Palestinians took upon themselves that commitment, and in Oslo A, they were allowed 9,000 policemen with automatic rifles. A year after, they had already 30,000.
Yeah, they had an army.
30,000. And this should be emphasized, because the Egyptians, and I'm not very satisfied about the way and about the Egyptian attitude, but the Egyptians never, for 25 years, they never tried, for example, to deploy one tanks divisions or infantry divisions or surface-to-air missiles in East Sinai. The Palestinians, 1 year after they gave their commitment, after Rabin and Arafat shook hands on the White House lawn, they already violated the arms control element, and in the last 3 months, there is another dramatic development. Until now, they violated all the arms control elements by number of weapons, by number of guns. 2 months ago, we discovered that they are making systematic efforts to deploy light artillery means, Katyusha rockets, to produce light mortars, and also surface-to-air missiles in immediate proximity to our coastal plain, to some of our most important military airports. And this poses a threat not to our personal security, like terrorism, but to our national security.
All right, Yuval, you, obviously when you're in peace now, you're friendly with the Meretz people. They're intelligent people. They're sophisticated people. They see this as you do, or they understand it as you do. Why do they persist in trying to find a path to Arafat? I don't blame them for trying to find a path for peaceful negotiations. What you had a transference in your mind. Why are these people? Why is Yossi Beilin, and he has a right to do what he wants to do. It's a free country, and Sarid and that whole gang of Meretz people. Why are they still strong in their attempt to try and move into a situation with Arafat? When, I'm a lawyer, if you see a guy has no credibility, you put him on a witness stand and you whip him around a little bit, then, he's dismissed as a good witness. There's a lot of credibility that's been destroyed on Arafat's part. What moves the Meretz people and Yossi Beilin?
I think this is a very interesting question. But first I must admit, and I understand my friends in Meretz, that even for me it was very difficult to change my mind.
Why?
At the beginning, for so many years, I was activist in the Peace Now movement,
right.
And I participated and even organized rallies and protests.
T-shirts.
Yeah, T-shirts. So it was very difficult. In the beginning, you convince yourself that what you see is just obstacles, little obstacles in the right way, in the right road for peace.
Right.
And it's very difficult to change your mind. For me, it was a very difficult year until I had to admit myself that it was wrong, that it is more likely war agreements, and that the existential threat to the state of Israel is increasing because of those agreements. So it is very difficult, also more so to politicians. But I must tell you that many people that supported Meretz, including many writers and journalists and people from the academia, changed their mind.
Absolutely.
And I'll give you one example, very interesting example. 2 weeks before the recent election, the last February elections, when Sharon was elected, I got a phone call from a very famous writer and novelist in Israel. Very known. I won't disclose the name, it was a private conversation. And he phoned me to discuss about other issues at all. And he's very known also to be affiliated, to be a supporter not of Labour but of Meretz. And he told me, Yuval,
Meretz is a left-wing party of
yes.
Peace Now in Israel.
Left even than the Labour Party.
Right.
And he told me, Yuval, I'm going to shock you. I'm not going to vote for Ehud Barak. And then immediately added, but I'm not going to vote for Sharon either, because I think I have very strong psychological inhibition against him. So I asked him, why? Are you making the same move like I did several years ago from left to right? Or as some of my friends are saying, not moving from left to right, but make a right move. Yes. He said, no, not at all. I'm still supporting the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. I'm still supporting even dismantling most of the Jewish settlements. I don't mind about it. And I'm even ready, and I will be ready in the future, to consider some moderate compromise in Jerusalem. But, he added, and this is extremely important, but, he added, I am not willing to take the risk of a second Jewish catastrophe. Now I'm quoting, I'm not willing to take the risk of a second Jewish catastrophe. And immediately explains that in Barak's proposal last summer, and in Clinton's proposal, or Clinton offering 1 month before he left there, he can identify some elements that might lead to a second Jewish catastrophe in the Middle East. One of the major points that he made, and I think that this is extremely important to clarify, was the issue of the right of return. Now, the factual implications of the right of return are very clear and well elaborated upon, and I don't want to go. It's very clear that if we open the gate, we cannot close it, and Israel will be overflowed by Arab Palestinians, immigration, and this will be the end of the Jewish state.
Let me explain that to the audience. Right of return is a concept that the Palestinians want to return to the housing or land or whatever they left in Israel. And if you allow that to happen demographically, you probably wouldn't have a Jewish state in 20 years. So that's a key issue.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. The preceding program was brought to you by Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.